When I need answers about anything to do with personal growth, I go straight to my mom and my aunt. Here they are, Priscilla Babin and Tina Gilliatt with the Sister Sauce.
Hi, everybody. I'm Tina Gilliatt, and this is the Sister Sauce. I am here with my sister BFF, Priscilla Babin, and we are excited to have this 13th episode of the
13.
Sister Sauce. And we're going
Lucky
to say that's a
13.
lucky number. Yes, it's Friday and it's the 13th episode. We're recording on Friday. It will be
Yeah.
released on Sunday.
But it's
Yeah.
not. Today's the 12th, though.
Yes.
Just making sure.
That would have been interesting, right?
Yeah.
Recording on Friday the 13th episode. Do you remember when I lived in an apartment that was labeled X13 was the apartment number? And I remember thinking, that sounds like such an unlucky apartment number. And sure enough, that was the apartment where my car got stolen and somebody tried to break in while I was in there. Oh my goodness, that was insane. I couldn't wait to get out of that apartment. And then when they broke my door down practically, and the maintenance man was there fixing my door, he said to me, "Do you know this apartment's been broken into like 6 times before?" And I said, "You've got to be kidding me." And he said, "Well, it's the angle; it's not visible to the rest of the parking lot." And so X13 was not a lucky number. Mm-mm. So I moved to J8, and then my other car got stolen. And that was when I said, okay, we're moving. And then we moved away. So very interesting time for us there.
Yeah. Maybe it was the neighborhood, not the apartment.
It was like a block from church. We could walk to church, but yeah, it was it was a declining neighborhood, I guess I could say. And our apartment complex didn't have a security gate like some of them do. So anyway, what a mess. What a mess. I'm just checking in with you. Did you make I don't recall if you made any resolutions that were stated on air.
I didn't make any real solid ones. One of the things that was sort of a family resolution we made was that we were going to try to do more real cooking at home. Like, I cook at home, but my kids don't like the same things I like, and they don't like the same things each other likes, except for, certain exceptions. So, my son could eat, pizza 3 meals a day, but we try to avoid that. So I told them that our resolution as a family was going to have us cooking more full meals, with more than one item in it. And I would have them come into the kitchen, at least one or the other of them. They don't have to both be in there. And I'm trying to teach them some basic cooking skills, especially
That's awesome.
since they are getting close to becoming a grown person and will have to make their own macaroni and cheese, when they get to college in a couple years. So, or a little over a year. But so we cooked some pasta the other night so I could show them, this is how it should look. And here's, you could fish out one noodle if you want to check it and see if it's the right dente, You don't want it to be too chewy. You don't want it to be too smushy. And what does it look like now? And, how many minutes is it and everything? And heating up the sauce without scorching it, and different stuff. So that's what we're working on right now.
That's cool. Olivia didn't start cooking anything until she was probably 18, 19. And of course, she goes to college 25 minutes away, so she doesn't have to live on campus.
Mhm.
And we've encouraged her to take advantage of us while she can, because we won't be we won't be around forever. But of course, that's me not wanting to be an empty nester. But
Mhm.
she is getting better at it. She tries some really strange recipes, though. But I think it all started when she was in high school in the Latin club, and they were challenged with making some type of dish um, that was Latin in, I don't know. It was just an unusual dish. I don't remember what the deal
Mhm.
was, but it was for her Latin class. And it was awful, I have to say. It tasted horrible, but she followed the recipe, and we had to substitute some things because it was like a ye olde recipe that has some weird ingredients. So we
Mm.
made some substitutions. But I
Well, I
shared
mean,
with you that my I don't really have any necessarily resolutions other than a general one to simplify my life. My word is of the year is simplification or simplicity. And so I'm working to simplify my life, and I have made progress. I actually started shutting down my LinkedIn account. I haven't completely shut it down yet, but I was a manager of a group on there and talked to a friend who agreed to take over management of that group because he still belongs to the Toastmasters Club it's associated with, and I don't. So he agreed to take care of that. And so I'm working on it and getting rid of some um, things, trying to sell some property and do that kind of stuff.
downsize.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm also, and we had our yard sale before the end of the year,
yeah.
right? Or was it the beginning of January? No,
It
it was
was
before
before
Christmas.
before
Yeah,
Christmas. Yeah, I think it was
right.
before Christmas.
Yeah, we snuck it in there
Yes.
last minute.
It was a cold and rainy day, but it didn't
It
rain until
was.
after the sale was over, so that was
Yeah.
good.
So that was some downsizing, and we're gonna do it again, right?
Oh yeah,
Still
for
got more
sure.
stuff.
I'm hoping that I sell my house in the next couple of weeks. No, I'm kidding. That won't happen. But I'm hoping that when I sell my house, we can have like an estate sale inside my house so that we can like set it up the night before and then the next day have a sale and people
Less
can just
work.
come through the empty house because my plan is get everything out that I'm not selling, leave all the furniture that we are selling in the house,
Hmm.
and this is a
And in the
great plan
empty
that I have.
space, we can
Whether
put
this will work or
other stuff.
not is another story.
We have to really watch people. They'll be smuggling out golf clubs and everything else.
Well, we would
Excuse
have
me, sir. What's that under your shirt before you leave?
everything downstairs, and we wouldn't have any. I mean, I'm thinking my goal would be to go to closing on one house one day, move out. Well, I don't know how this is all going to work in my brain, but I just was hoping I would have a few days leeway where I
Yeah.
get the new house, sell the old house, move everything in those few days, except the stuff I'm going to sell, hold my garage sale, then go to closing on the house. And you like the way I have that all planned, right?
Hmm.
I doubt it'll work that way, but I can dream.
We can't have the sale in the house if you sell the house.
But we would do it like the day before
Have
closing.
the sale planned. Plan the sale of the house and the sale of the things right before the house gets officially sold. Something like that.
Yeah,
I don't know
we'll
how
have
that
to
works
we'll have
either.
to work that out. Okay. Yes, because I can't afford to pay two house notes at once. So we got to work it out. We'll figure it out. I'll move in with you. Okay.
Okay, there we go.
That was easy.
It
All
was
right. Do
okay.
you have some hot sauce for us today?
Oh, my sauce is so hot. It
Oh,
burns my whole face.
this is one of the ones that is really hot sauce. Huh?
Yes. So I don't want to give any specifics like where my kids go to school or anything over a podcast, but most people who have kids and have taken their kids to school and been the person who drives their kids to school has experienced carpool. And carpools are not supposed to be real complicated. Most places, there's a place you drive into the parking lot, and there's a place you stop to drop the kids off or pick the kids up, and there's a place you exit, and it's pretty simple. Um, we had a conundrum with my kids' school where the school moved, and so everything is new. Like we had a whole new plan, and the school that existed there previously on the property was, I guess their setup was very different. I don't know what their deal was, but we have different ages of kids in our school. And I think that's what contributed to some of the issues, like, the number of cars lining up, the number of people. I think maybe more kids at for the previous school were bus riders. So they didn't have so many parents actually pulling up to school on a daily basis, morning and afternoon. But the point of all of this rambling is that they had to come up with a really efficient plan, and they actually had like an engineer, a city engineer, planner person come in and do the work and look at the roads that go around the school and stuff in an effort to stop parents from blocking driveways of houses that are in the neighborhood around the school, to get more people into an area where they're not in the neighborhood, like surrounding the school and stuff, just avoiding the actual houses. And the plan that they came up with, a bunch of people complained about it, but it's a brilliant plan because it keeps us from getting in anybody's way. We don't have to worry about angry neighbors coming out and hollering at us like we did at the other location we were at, which stressed me out to no end, to the point where I got to school to drop off and pick up late so that I wouldn't have to sit anywhere. And not late, but at the tail end of
Right.
carpool for both morning and evening. And the new plan that they have is great. It's extremely efficient. They sent out maps of this is where the way you have to drive, and there's certain ways, like they want you to go. We have to go opposite, like we're in London
Mhm.
in the morning, so that the incoming traffic and the outgoing traffic flows without having to stop for each other. So the only way to do that was to have us go down the wrong side of the street, going in and coming out, which is okay because the school has a street that leads to the entrances that is not, it's on the back of houses, so there's not driveways or anything. So it's convenient because it's this long whole stretch of road that's only ours, kind of. Other through traffic might come through there, but it's rare, because there's not really a need. Anyway, they sent maps out and everything at the beginning of the year when it got changed because they had to play around with it and stuff. And it got perfected and everything was great. And everything's been running so smoothly that within a couple of months of school starting, they stopped having teachers and other staff members standing out in the parking lot directing people because everybody knew what to do. So it was kind of on your honor, self-serve, you know, and there's a certain way to do things. I mean, you come in and you go around this whole circle, and then everybody's supposed to line up in rows, and there's like a dozen rows. And the latest, after somehow, I don't think it was after Christmas break, I think it was even before Christmas break, people started just like cutting through, like the rows of traffic are directly connected with the lane you have to enter in, but there's traffic cones set up to sort of create a lane that's just for people coming in. And then you're supposed to go all the way around and come back through this other part of the parking area that's for the buses. And when you come back, the other side of the cones is the other direction of the lane, and then everybody lines up parallel to that. But people have started cutting through the cones. People have started stopping at lane one because they want to be in lane one, even though lane one's full, and just not proceeding to get into one of the other lanes. And it's making me absolutely crazy. And everybody know, I mean, it's pretty obvious, when you're pulling in, you can see if the lanes are all full, and that's the only reason you would stop at lane one is to create a new lane one. And but people are just greedy and selfish, and they want to be in lane one, and or they don't care about the people behind them getting stuck. And I've seen parents, breaking the rules about, we're only supposed to enter the street that the school is on from a certain direction. People break that rule all the time. It's just like anything goes and they don't care. And I've heard other parents say, oh, well, I was in a hurry, so,
Mm.
no big deal. And it is a big deal because if everybody just does whatever they feel like doing willy-nilly, we're going to have problems.
Yeah, the key word is I
Mm-hmm.
was.
Uh-huh.
It's all about them,
Yeah.
right?
So my hot sauce for you today is follow the rules, people. Follow
Yeah.
the rules. There's rules for a reason. That's for the structure of society, and on a smaller basis for the school. And especially if you're a parent and you're breaking the rules at carpool or being inconsiderate to other drivers in carpool, your kids see it and
Oh,
other people's kids see it, and they'll grow up and be butt heads too.
oh, yeah.
Almost not a bad word. I've been watching too much Ted Lasso, Tina. I
I'm
gotta
just
watch
so
my
excited
mouth.
that you're watching Ted Lasso. I don't care if you speak
Follow
that
the
language.
rules. Follow the rules, or else Roy Kent will come after you.
Oh, really? I am like you are preaching to the choir with this one because you know that I've always been a rule follower. I've gotten picked on for it by adults, not just children. Adults have picked on me as an adult, whereas children used to pick on me when I was a kid and I was such a rule follower. Now I get picked on by other adults because they think I'm being ridiculous. But I've had people say to me, rules are made to be broken, and I have went gone ballistic on them when they've
Mhm.
said that because I really strongly believe rules are for a reason. And I'm not going to tell you that I'm this perfect angel who always follows the rules, but I consider why the rules are in place. And if I'm about to break a rule because of some need that I have, like I'm racing to get to my child who needs me or whatever, I'm going to darn well consider how that rule is going to impact other people. And I won't do it if I think it's going to hurt somebody else.
Mhm.
But for the most part, I don't break rules because, well, I'm afraid to be punished for one thing. But I'm with you. I believe rules are made for a reason and they benefit everybody. And I try to
Mhm.
follow the rules. The one or two times that there are a couple of times in my life that I didn't follow the rules because I had a good reason and still got reamed out by other people. I'll never forget when I did not put my basket back in the corral at Toys R Us because my baby was crying and burning up with fever. And as I was putting him in the car and realizing he was running a fever, he started crying and he was screaming. And I took my basket and pushed it to the side where I thought it wouldn't hurt anybody. And this lady jumped out of her car and started screaming at me. And when I tried to explain I had a sick child and I was trying to get him home, she put her hand in my face and said, "You're a rule breaker, you're horrible," and was calling me all kinds of names. And
Hmm.
I was really upset. But so typically I am a rule follower because I totally get it. I totally get it.
You never
Maybe,
know. She might be listening right now and feel really
yes,
bad
yes,
about what she did.
she's probably a sister saucy, and I doubt it because she was evil, and our fans are not evil.
She was an ancient Karen.
Oh, she was. She was. She was a Karen before we knew what a Karen was. But yeah,
That's the thing too. That's one of my worries is in all my rule following and my desire for other people to follow the rules. I don't want to get called a Karen
yeah. Oh,
because, you know,
it doesn't matter. You know that I've been called a Karen, and the reason I got called a Karen was so ridiculous. It I
yeah, I think we
I
talked about
refused
it
to
on
give some
here
personal
actually.
information to somebody and they called me a Karen.
Yeah,
And I'm like, I don't think you understand what Karen means.
yeah.
not
Oh
that
Lord.
not that that's an appropriate use of that name. It's a shame. How would you like to be named Karen in this day and age? Ugh,
Yeah,
kind of get a bad rap, huh?
yeah, it's not fair. They should not associate a certain personality with a
I
certain
know,
name.
right? Ugh. I
Hello,
wonder
my
how
name
many
is
people are naming
Priscilla.
their kids Karen these days. Or I have a friend whose name is Katrina, and I'm like, I'm sorry.
Oh, really?
I think
Yeah.
she gets called Hurricane occasionally.
Yeah. When I was a kid, I didn't like being Pris.
Oh, that's true. I didn't think about that. Yeah, Miss
Hmm.
Press. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I call you Press all the time, but I don't mean anything by it.
Well, no, I like my name now. I've grown into it. And people don't really use the term Miss Pris anymore or
True.
Prissy. You
That's
don't
kind of
really hear people
antiquated.
calling people Prissy anymore.
Yeah, that's
They have
true.
many other names.
I always get called Tina Marie. And then I'll say, Marie's not my middle name. And they'll say, really? Because it fits so well. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm not really Tina. I'm Christina. So anyway, all right. Well, moving on. Follow the rules, people. All
Yes.
right, moving on. We have a great topic in store for today. We are going to be debunking some myths.
Yeah.
And so I found some stuff, and Priscilla found some stuff in our research. And we each have an article that we're going to be referring to. The article that I found, or one of the articles that I found, I should say, but the one that I'm going to start with first was on WebMD. And so most of these myths have something to do with the body or health. And Priscilla's first article that she's going to talk about, same sort of thing.
Hmm.
And so the article is called 10 Health Myths Debunked, and it's on WebMD. We'll put the link in the show notes so you can go read all the details. And then Priscilla will share what her article is in just a moment. But the first one on my list, and Priscilla, you're probably going to tell me that this is a debated one, I think, because I was blown away by this one and I wondered if it was true. But the article, this was on WebMD though, so you never know. But the first myth that they debunk is that you have to drink 8 glasses of water a day
Mm.
on WebMD. And I was like, wait, what? I've always heard that. And then I think you and I talked about the fact that
Hmm.
AJ's doctor, my husband's doctor, told him to drink so many ounces for the weight of his body. Like, I don't know what it was, an ounce for every 3 pounds or 2 pounds or 5 pounds or something like that. But
Hmm.
anyway, there was some kind of formula there. But this said that you don't have to drink a certain number of ounces of water a day or a certain number of glasses. You just drink when you're thirsty. Or if you notice that your urine is dark, then that means that you probably need to drink. But they said that most people get the water or hydration that they need from eating water rich foods like soup, fruits, vegetables, or drinking things like juice, tea, and coffee, which I'd always thought the caffeine in coffee dehydrates you. And so I'm not so sure about this one. I think while they're calling it a myth and it's WebMD, so you kind of got to wonder, I'm wondering if this is a debated topic from website to website. So
Hmm.
um, feel free to debunk the debunking.
Well, uh, I was looking it up real quick to see what that formula was. It's like half your weight in ounces.
Oh, okay.
But and when I went to search it, they came up with an AARP article that said that women should drink 9 cups of water a day, and men should drink 13 cups of water a day. And I was like, no,
Oh my
I
goodness.
don't know
That's,
where they got that from. But
yeah,
yeah, half your body weight. So if you're a person who weighs, you know, 160 pounds, then you should be drinking 80 ounces of water a
which
day,
is 10
for
cups.
example.
Yeah.
Hmm. And I've talked when we've talked before, and I don't know if I did it on the Sister Sauce or Sensei Sisters, but I showed, I have that big Yeti cup. It's the same as the cups you have. I don't know, yours are Stanley or whatever, but
Hmm.
they're about 32 ounces. And if you're putting 30 ounces of water in there, a few times a day, you're getting 90 ounces of water right there. So for a while I had a goal of drinking 3 of those a day because I felt like that was a good amount of water. Um, but I can't say I'm getting that right now. That's another one of my sort of resolutions is to make sure I'm more keyed into how much water I'm getting. But generally, yeah, half of your body weight, divide your body weight in half, and that's how many ounces you really should be getting. You can do as much as a whole ounce for every pound, but they said it's between half an ounce per pound and an ounce. So half
You
your
do
body
have to be
weight
careful
is
that you
half
don't
an ounce.
overhydrate and flush all
Yeah,
your
that's really
electrolytes
hard
out.
to do though. That's really hard to do.
I do have a friend whose mom did that. She was on some kind of diet where she was told to drink a lot of water. Well, she drank so much that she passed out on the front lawn of her house while she was mowing her lawn because she
Mhm.
had, between perspiring and drinking all the water, she had lost all her electrolytes
Mm,
and I guess something else, and it caused her to pass out. And it was really dangerous. Whatever she did, she was in the hospital for several days while they were trying to hydrate her and get potassium and other
mhm.
vitamins in her because she
Yeah.
had wreaked havoc on her body. But I will say this too, and I don't agree. When I read that, I was skeptical because it said that you should drink when you're thirsty, and I don't recognize when I'm thirsty. And the other thing is that, like, we have a 91-year-old mom who is always dehydrated because she is the same way. She doesn't feel thirsty, and so she doesn't drink. And even though
Hmm.
Scott, our brother, puts water in front of her, it sits there all day and she doesn't
Hmm.
necessarily drink it. And then when she starts acting strange, we know it's because she's dehydrated,
Hmm.
and we get her to drink, and then all of a sudden she's fine again. And so then, and it's the same thing with AJ. He's 70, my husband, and he was told that some of the reasons, or one of the reasons that his blood pressure may be low a lot is because he may be dehydrated and
Hmm.
lacking sodium that, he's not getting. So it's weird. I don't know that
Yeah.
I agree with this one.
I definitely don't agree with waiting until you're thirsty because what I learned, and I don't remember where I learned it, so I can't qualify the statement, but it might have been when I was in nutrition class. Somewhere I was told if you become thirsty, you are already getting dehydrated. Dehydration is already below where it needs to be if you get thirsty.
That's interesting.
So, if and yes, eating certain things will make you have a sensation of being thirsty, but like salty snacks will make you want to drink, and maybe that doesn't mean that might not be a necessarily time when you're already dehydrated, but in general, if you're just walking around the house and you're like, gee, I'm thirsty, you're probably already pretty dehydrated.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you got to be proactive on the water. And it's just the same thing with mom. If she's not drinking and then she starts getting loopy, she's already dehydrated. It's not This is when the drinking needs to start. The drinking should have started
Yeah,
already.
for sure. I can definitely see that.
Yeah.
What was the article that you found that had some similar items in it.
The one I found is on uchealth.org. I'm not sure what the UC stands for. It's probably for, wow, I'm in country for a second. It's probably some university thing.
Yeah,
But it's 10
University of
myths,
Carolina. No, I'm kidding. I don't
maybe.
know.
I don't know. I don't even sure. It's 10 myths you may have heard from your parents.
Oh,
And a lot of these do have to do with things of the body, you know. And the first one is chewing gum stays in your stomach for 5 to 7 years, and that is false. Um, and because they're trying to say it takes you that long to digest it, but chewing gum, most of the ingredients in chewing gum aren't digestible at all, so you're gonna poop it out.
that's funny because
Come
we were
out.
just talking about that the other day. Livia said, "Have y'all ever had Hubba Bubble bubble gum?" And AJ jokingly said, "Yeah, I used to swallow it all the time when I was a kid, and now I have a big ball in my stomach." We were just talking
Oh,
about that.
my favorite one is and I think somebody I know, I'm not going to say who just in case I don't want to embarrass them. Somebody, it's not you. Somebody I know had a t-shirt that had the cartoon with the people in a yoga class and they're sitting on yoga balls and it has some joke about they all ate too much chewing gum or something. Like the bubbles were coming out.
Okay. The other discussion that we had was how to blow bubbles, and Livia told me she's been watching YouTube videos to effectively blow bubbles. She wants to improve upon that. You
Mm,
can learn anything on YouTube. We've said it before, we'll say it again. Okay. So my second one is that eggs are bad for your heart.
mm,
And the article on WebMD says that eating one or two eggs a day does not raise your risk for heart disease if you're a healthy person. So it's kind of contingent on, I mean, if you have heart disease, you probably don't want to eat eggs, right? Because there is cholesterol in the yolks, but the amount uh, found in any one food isn't as bad for you as the overall fats that you get from everything that you eat. And eggs actually have nutrients like omega 3s that can lower your risk for heart disease. And so there you go. Moderation,
yeah.
and also make sure you're health wise, you're where you need to be.
Mm,
I asked my cardiologist one time because I'm on blood pressure medicine and cholesterol medicine, which I would like to get off of both. And I'm working on that. But I had asked him one time, is it okay for me to eat eggs? And he said yes. Now I do the egg beaters or the egg, whatever it is, the liquid eggs that are egg whites. So
mm,
I get my eggs that way. But I do eat eggs when we go out and I'll eat boiled eggs. So I
mm.
do get eggs occasionally that have a yolk.
I love eggs. I
I
love
do
eggs so
too.
much.
Like, so
I,
thankful
I,
that that's,
I, I have certain people I follow for nutritional
yeah,
advice, and it's changed over the years because, newer information has come out. Unfortunately, the people I follow for nutritional advice are a little bit controversial because they don't believe things that have been traditionally taught to us, like eggs are bad.
right.
And they don't believe that food that has cholesterol in it creates cholesterol to encourages or causes cholesterol to rise in the body. So their stance on food that has cholesterol in it is that is not your problem, you know? And
Yeah.
so I have not I've only one time had blood work done where my doctor was like your triglycerides are a little bit high, you know. Usually my problem is more that my good cholesterol is too low. So, so long as I'm healthy, I'm going
For
to eat
real.
my eggs. I love eggs.
Yeah, usually you and I meet for breakfast, and that's what we both
Mhm.
get. So,
Yep.
what's your number two?
Oh, my number two is wait an hour after eating before going swimming to prevent cramping. And that is false. You can eat a normal sized meal right before going in swimming and it will not cause cramping. It is possible to feel tired and fatigued if you are overeating and then swimming. So be careful of that because you weigh yourself down in the water, depending on what it is.
We used to go swimming at Aunt Audrey's house all the time when we were kids, and then we would get out the pool and eat lunch, and that was the hardest hour or however long we had to wait before we
Mm.
got back in pool. And I think it was probably the most miserable for mom because she had to sit there and listen to us. Please let me get back in the water.
And y'all could have been in there that whole time. See,
I know. Oh
they
my
didn't
goodness.
know.
No.
You know what this reminds me of? Because I think it's because swimming is aerobic exercise, it's
Mhm.
cardio. And it makes me think of the Fun Run episode of The Office where Michael just starts chomping on a big bowl of Alfredo pasta.
Oh yes. Oh,
Don't
carb
eat a
loading.
giant, yeah, don't carb load. And that's not carb loading, anyways. That's just
Yeah.
trash loading, really.
Yeah.
Don't eat a giant bowl of Alfredo and then jump in the pool, probably for certain reasons.
Oh,
But yeah,
okay.
that was
My
gross.
number three is one that we've actually talked about before. We talked before. We've talked about it on the breast cancer awareness month episode, and it is that antiperspirants cause breast
Mm,
cancer. And WebMD says no, they don't. In fact, deodorants and antiperspirants, um, there's no evidence connecting them to uh, breast cancer. But the reason that it was believed is because some scientists think that you can absorb the chemicals in the deodorants through your skin, primarily aluminum.
hmm.
And while you can, that it's not linked to breast cancer. But you can buy aluminum free deodorant if you're worried about that. And I'll give a shout out to Jordan Essentials because we both
Mm,
use Jordan Essentials products. And
hmm.
one of the things I buy from them is the deodorant that's aluminum free. Um,
Yeah,
so
there's
good.
some other health conditions that they've tried to pin on, heavy metals or aluminum. I don't know if aluminum counts as a heavy metal. It's,
Yeah, I
I
don't
don't
know.
know. But yeah, there are reasons to avoid certain things, I guess. And there are some things, we would never know until years and years from now.
Yeah,
But it doesn't hurt to avoid stuff. My next one, now this is one that I think is also on your list. Is that okay?
sure, go for it.
Is that we only use 10% of our brain. And I think that came from they said it in a movie or something. But they said it's a motive in my article, they call it a motivational speaker's ploy that can be traced back to the early 1900s. So, to encourage people to live to their full potential. You've got potential, Tina.
Yeah, and so of course you know that I did. You were, I think you actually went to that one where I did a talk about intentional growth, and I talked about the fact that we only use 10% of your brain. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Apparently
lied to the people.
there's no studies on brain activity that prove that. So
Oh, interesting. I mean, it's crazy. I will say this, and that's that you guys all need to go research this stuff. If there's something that somebody tells you, don't just believe it, because goodness sakes, Priscilla and I talked about it, and we found hundreds of myths, and we picked the ones
Mhm.
that we thought were most common. But there were so many out there that I was like, oh my God, I cannot believe that this is not true. I thought this was true. Okay. So my number four, I think, is also on your list,
Okay.
and or similarly anyway. And that is that being cold gives you a cold. So like if you're spending
Mhm.
time in cold air, like wintry weather, it would make you sick. But they actually on WebMD say to the contrary, you're more likely to get sick if you're indoors because germs are easily passed inside a house,
Mm-hmm.
obviously for air circulation reasons, but also because the climate's warmer and bacteria grows in warmth. And
Mm-hmm.
so interesting. I thought
Yeah,
that
because
was
we
interesting.
we get sick from bacteria and viruses, not from change in temperature.
And I know yours is a little different. So don't skip yours when you get to that because I want to hear that take that's in your article.
Oh yeah. That one's yeah, it is slightly different. The next one that I had was sitting too close to the TV will make you go blind, and that is false. Televisions and other devices, they have such low levels of radiation or light that they're not likely to have any effect on the body. But staring at the same thing for a long time can cause your eye muscles to get fatigued. So, and you know that. And
Yes.
there's no proof that it affects your vision. And even when your eyes are fatigued, there's no cause of long-term damage. So it's and sitting in front of the TV too close will cause the people behind you to yell, window.
Yes, that was always a common phrase in our house.
Yeah.
Okay. My next one is you need to take a daily multivitamin. According to
Ooh.
WebMD, that is not true. The best way to
Oh.
get vitamins and nutrients is through your food. And I know you
Yeah, that's
preach
true.
this over and over again. Fruits, vegetables, whole grains, nuts, healthy oils, those kinds of foods give you the vitamins that you need. But WebMD does put this disclaimer in there, and they said if you are seeing a doctor and the doctor wants you to take a multivitamin or any other vitamin, for example, it was recommended for me to take vitamin D3 because I always test low for that, probably because I
Mhm.
never go in the sun. But yeah, and so my doctor said, yeah, you need to take a vitamin D3 supplement. And so if your doctor tells you to take a vitamin, it's probably for a reason. And so don't ignore that. And also, if you're pregnant, there are certain vitamins you need to take for the health of your unborn child. So make sure you follow the rules that your doctor gives
Mhm. Yep, that is good points. And
you.
then the next one I have, and this is one I know I believed for sure, and I'm sure I've told this to my kids. Shaved hair grows back thicker and darker. Apparently that's not true. Although, I think we all from personal experience want to say it's true, but they say it's not. So I guess it's perception.
So it's not the reason my legs look like gorilla's legs.
You got Roy Kent legs.
I do. No, and I went for what was it like 6 months to a year without any body hair below my neck because of my medicines that I was taking for my eye treatments and now that I'm done with the medicines, I'm thankful some of the side effects are gone. But that side effect I would have been okay with. Still losing
Yeah.
the hair on my head, but all the body hair is back. Ugh.
Oh, yeah. They said that the reason that people think that people believe it is because when your hair first is newer and is growing out, it looks darker because it hasn't been bleached by the sun.
Ah, okay, that's
So,
interesting. All right.
mm,
All right, my next one is that the myth is green mucus means you have an infection. That is a myth, according to WebMD. According to WebMD, while it's slightly more common to have green or yellow mucus in certain infections, it's not necessarily a sign that you need antibiotics. And they
mm,
give this example. They say a sinus infection can cause clear mucus, and a common cold will turn that mucus green.
wow.
So,
Interesting.
and this is weird because as many sinus infections as I've had, the doctor has said is it green? You know, and I'm like, okay,
Mhm.
the doctor obviously thought that. So,
Yeah. Well, see, I've always thought, and I don't know where I got my information from. I don't know if it was a doctor or the internet or what, but that some green is okay, but like the brighter colors, like bright yellow or like a highlighter green or yellow is bad. That's what I always thought.
interesting.
I
So
might
you call somebody over and say, hey, look at my mucus. Do you think it's highlighter green?
what
Oh, that's
shade
just
do you think
gross.
this is? You pull out the
Pull out a
what is
paint
it called?
palette, you know,
I forgot what it's called that
color wheel.
that col the it's like it's a certain it's a certain company that has the I don't know scale of colors, and every year they come out with the color of the year, you know.
Oh, probably
This
one of
year
the
it's some
paint
peach
ones like
color.
Glidden. Is it Glidden? Glidden? I don't know.
Mm,
The paint companies probably. Mm.
I forget. I can't think of it. It doesn't
Oh.
matter.
What's your next one?
My next one, and I think you have this one also,
Yeah,
is sugar makes children hyper,
yeah,
which
yeah.
is not true.
That was
It's
on mine too.
and it says that some studies demonstrated that parents who thought their child was given sugar believed them to be more hyper, even when they weren't given sugar, which
Yeah.
debunked it that
So
way.
the article on WebMD that I found, it said it's not ideal to give kids a lot of sugar because it's bad for their health overall, right? But
Well, it's
they
bad for
said
everybody, yeah.
there have been studies that have proven that sugar does not make kids act out, lose focus, or do bad in school. And you also have to consider that some kids, might be hypoglycemic or whatever. So it's going to be different from kid to kid. Um, and it's also said, which is similar to what you said, that parents have been so ingrained to believe that sugar makes their kids hyper that they are hyper aware after their kids eat sugar and they
Mm.
manufacture it. So it's like a self fulfilling prophecy. So, yeah, that's what
That's
it had on mine.
That's interesting because mine conflicts with yours a little in that it says sugar does affect behavior. A breakfast high in sugar has been shown to result in severe deterioration of attention span.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so it makes you wonder who's getting what information. But
It's true. And both of these articles are from medical kind of backgrounds,
yeah,
right?
this one says
UC
one
Health.
study
Yours is on
reported,
UC Health.
uh-huh. One study reported that children given sugar had higher levels of adrenaline, which possibly explains the misconception because higher adrenaline levels lead to symptoms similar to those of hyperactivity.
Hmm. So maybe it's just based on your chemical makeup and your metabolism and
I
everything.
guess so. And I mean, we both have kids with ADHD, so
Yeah.
we know, you know, more sugar is probably not the best idea.
Well, but I can tell you that I never deprived mine of sugar. Oh
Well,
my
and
goodness. I,
I had a nurse tell me, we were talking about cutting back on caffeine and saying, maybe the kids need less caffeine or whatever. And she said, not if they have ADHD, because caffeine actually helps ADHD brain focus better. And that's why
that's
I
interesting. Maybe that's why I need coffee all the time.
yes,
Yes. Because
coffee is
I think
good
we have
for
figured
us.
out that everybody in our family has ADHD.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So my next one is an interesting one. It's about toilet seats. And it said the myth is a toilet seat can make you sick. And they said
Mm-hmm.
the article explained that you're more likely to get sick from touching something with your hands that has a virus or germs on it because you have more open cuts and wounds on your hands. They said the tissue on your buttocks is usually intact and there's no issue with that. Now, granted, if you rub your hands all over your butt after you sit on a toilet seat, you've got it on your hands now, right? But
Mhm.
I know I've always had kids freak or other people freak out about sitting on a public toilet seat. And I got to tell you, when you're overweight, it's impossible to hover over a toilet seat to do your
Mhm.
business, you know. And I do the whole thing with the toilet paper or the toilet seat covers if they're available, but I cannot not sit. You know, I've never been able, I never understood people who could do that, like stand. But those are the people that pee all over the toilet seat and make it worse for the
Yes,
next
thank
person,
you.
right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I was waiting to say that. You
But
hover, you sprinkle. Don't do it.
yes, if you sprinkle when you tinkle, be a sweetie wipe to seedy. There you go. um, but anyway, it went on to say that you're more likely to get sick from touching doors, door handles, and other surfaces in bathrooms. So be sure to wash your hands thoroughly after using the restroom. Use a paper towel to dry your hands, and then use that towel to open the door to leave. And I added my own caution to this, and that's ladies, do not put your purse on any surface in a public restroom.
Yeah,
So
use the
put it on the
hook.
floor. Don't put it on the little ledge where you're supposed to be able to put your purse because God knows what people laid on that. Don't put it on the counter in the bathroom. Hang that puppy on your shoulder, even if you have to do it while you're peeing
Mhm.
and while you're peeing. But
Well,
yeah,
you're American too.
purses carry the most germs because women put them on the floors, like at restaurants, or
Hmm.
if you're trying on shoes at the store and you put the purse on the floor, and then you go home, and what do you do with your purse?
Put it on the kitchen table.
Yes.
Ugh.
And I have gotten into a habit of when I walk in my back door, we have a little bench by my back door, and I put my purse on that. And occasionally AJ will be looking for a pen or something, and I'll say, "There's one in my purse. Look in my purse," and he'll pick up my purse and put it on the table, and I'm like, ah! "Don't do that. Don't put the purse on the table." I think he knows by now, but I kind of am freaked out about that because I had read that somewhere that purses.
Yeah.
I think I saw a TV special where they actually used one of those guns to laser light guns or whatever to look
Oh,
at the
yeah.
bottom of people's purses and see what garbage was on them, and they tested them and all. So
Ew.
disgusting.
I recently washed the bottoms of both the kids' lunch boxes because they sit
Ah,
them all over the floor at school, you know?
that's a good
And it was
idea.
so gross. It was so gross. And that's what their food is in. So they're touching it to open it up, unzip it, and then they're touching their food.
Yeah, that's a good
Nasty.
point. Ish.
Nasty.
Yeah.
Mm.
What
Well,
be your next one?
my next one is the one that is similar to your cold one going up.
Okay.
And so this one's a little bit, the difference is this one is real specific. It doesn't just say if you go out in the cold, you'll catch a cold. It says if you go outside with wet hair on a cold day, you'll catch a cold.
Ah,
And this also is false for the same reasons. Colds are caused by viruses and bacteria and not from being outside in the cold. But they said you might feel sick if you're outside in the cold or the rain all day, like runny nose, chills, and fatigue. But it's not because you're sick, it's because you can experience these same symptoms when you have a chill just from being outdoors. So don't call it a cold just because you went out in the cold and felt bad necessarily. Wait and see. And you probably caught it when you were inside.
yeah. Yeah, for
I will
sure.
say there was that other article. We had looked at multiple articles and pared things down a bit. And I had one article that was just way too long and repetitive and stuff. But they had a bit in there, and I don't think it's on either one of the lists we have, that said going to bed with wet hair would make you sick. And it said the interesting thing that's not true. Just in general, going to bed with wet hair won't make you sick. However, it did say if you constantly go to bed with wet hair, you're wetting your pillow and your pillowcase, which creates a breeding ground for germs.
Oh, that's interesting.
Of course, now if it's only my pillow, it's only my germs. So but I guess bacteria could build up.
Yeah, if
So,
you, it's like using the same towel every day, right? It's
yeah.
your towel, you just got out the shower, but the wetness of it is what breeds the bacteria.
Mhm.
So, yeah, that makes sense. I never thought about it before.
Yeah. So I took a shower last night and guess who dried their hair before they went to bed because I was like, oh.
Now, I used to go to sleep with wet hair sometimes, but I'd wrap it in a towel.
Mm.
And so
I
the towel was what was wet, not the pillow.
yeah, I
But now I
usually
get a headache if I do that.
yeah, I don't think I could sleep with a towel on my head, but what I used to do when my hair was very longer a few weeks ago, okay, not even a few weeks ago, a week ago, I used to flip my head over and comb all my hair to the top of my head and make a little bun on the top of my head. And then my hair would have nice waves and stuff. It would actually be still wet when I got up the next day and unleashed it because, being tied up with it's the same principle as, doing a
A
tie-dye
t-shirt
shirt or
wrap.
whatever. When you
Yeah,
tie it up together,
yeah.
it keeps that moisture in. So I would undo it in the morning and shake it out and let it be curly and dry out like in the morning. But my hair's so thin, it doesn't hold a lot of water. So just my skull parts touching,
And
the
it's not
pillow
that
wasn't
wet,
as bad.
right?
But now I
Yeah.
can't do that because I don't have enough hair to gather up on the top of my head.
Oh, okay, let me see what my next one is. I think I might have skipped one. Okay, so my next one is um, the myth is you have to eat breakfast to lose weight. And I have always believed that. In fact, I encouraged Eric, we were talking about weight, and I'm like, oh, well, you got to eat breakfast because that like jumpstarts your metabolism. And I had all this thought about that. But according to WebMD, that's a myth. It says, while it does help some people reduce their cravings throughout the day because they eat a hearty breakfast, it doesn't, it's not necessarily essential to losing weight. A Cornell University study found that the non-breakfast crowd didn't overeat at lunch and dinner. They ate about 400 fewer calories a day. Interesting.
Hmm.
The bottom line is that skipping breakfast may help healthy people shed pounds, but not necessarily everybody.
Hmm.
So I'm a breakfast freak. I have to have my breakfast, but that's because I wake up in the morning and I'm starving. And if I don't eat within maybe 3 or 4 hours of waking up, I end up with a migraine. Now, according to my migraine doctor, that's because my electrolytes are low and yada, yada, yada. So I could probably drink a Gatorade and be fine. But, last week I missed breakfast because of running to help AJ when he had car trouble. And I ended up um, not being able to eat until I think it was like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I had been up since like 8:30, and I immediately, um, after like 4 hours, not immediately, but after like 4 hours of not eating or having coffee. Now that was probably caffeine withdrawal too.
Mm.
So, but I have to eat breakfast. I feel like I can't function if I don't eat breakfast.
Mm.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't necessarily need breakfast first thing in the morning. My kids never eat breakfast. Almost never. If they, at least not at breakfast time, you know?
Yeah.
They eat lunch at school when they have a school day and they eat dinner at home. And if it's a weekend, they don't typically eat anything until almost lunchtime. So they don't ever eat breakfast, but if my kids try to eat breakfast, they feel sluggish
Hmm. That's
and,
interesting.
you know, and, you know, don't want to contribute to any stomach issues either because they feel like heavy and stuff. They don't like and my kids don't like, you know, greens and proteins like me. So breakfast would be sugar, which, which we know. not an ideal breakfast, but it won't hurt them. Well, I mean, it will hurt them in the long run. But anyways, I'm gonna skip on my list. I'm gonna skip one so that I can get to my one that is breakfast related, which
Okay.
is similar. And it is just breakfast is the most important meal of the day, which, as you said in your debunking part, breakfast is not necessarily the most important meal of the day. And what I know about breakfast, what they said about breakfast is actually one of the three most important meals of the day.
One of the three. Okay.
Right. And as if you have other meals. Because that's one of the things I've learned, and this is from my controversial health gurus that I follow, well, nutritionists, they're legit nutritionists, is that um breakfast, the word breakfast is a compound word of break and fast because you're breaking your fast.
Right.
You've been sleeping and doing other stuff, and then the first meal that you eat since you slept, you're breaking your fast. So technically, you're eating at noon a sandwich, that's breakfast. That's your break fast. That's your when you're
That's
breaking
true. Yeah.
fast. So it's your breakfast is the first meal you eat of the day, no matter what time it is. So in that sense, yes, it is important because it's the breaking of your fast. So if you eat garbage, for your first meal of the day, that's not necessarily good. So in that sense, yes, breakfast is, but they're talking about traditional breakfast, 8 a.m. or whenever, whenever
Hmm.
you wake up.
Hmm.
Um, the timing is not what's so important about it. It's not when you eat, it's what you eat. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's in the order that you eat. But yeah, breakfast, and that's another side thing that I want to mention just because it's in my head and I like to say what's in my head. Is that is that we've taught, over the years, and it's another myth, and it's not on any of the lists that five small, and it's not a common myth that your parents teach you. It's one that kind of caught on for a while as a weight loss thing, is that you should eat five small meals a day and not three big meals. And as you were just saying, you know, that's that's not necessarily, so important to eat more meals. And the funny thing is, one of the people I follow said, that caught on because people were looking at animals and saying, oh, animals don't get fat, like, obese fat, like overweight, like people do in the same way. I mean, some animals carry more fat and some animals are bigger, but they're generally, if they're in the wild, especially, are all a similar size in their breed, whereas it's not true for humans. But making us eat like animals is not natural because we're not the same as buffaloes or deer or whatever.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and their way of eating is very different. We don't wander through the woods looking for berries all day long. We have work and school and whatever. And so our needs, our dietary needs and our timing of eating is different, and different creatures eat different ways. Some eat, one big meal every 2 days or whatever, lions and tigers, they don't hunt all day. They
Hmm.
hunt, they get their meat, they fill up, and they're good for a little while. They don't have a schedule, the way that we do.
Yeah.
So we eat different.
Yeah.
And five small meals is really just snacking all day, which is actually
Yeah. It's not good.
actually
Yeah.
not good for you because it trains your metabolism to and confuses it. So,
Mm, yeah.
yeah.
Okay. So, um, I'm not sure how, but I'm on my last one and I know you have a couple more, but
I have one.
my last one is that I think it's because we have so many duplicates. My last one is that, and this one is a duplicate, and you can just add to it, whatever your thoughts are. Cracking joints causes arthritis. And so I was one of those kids that always cracked my knuckles. And I used to get fussed at for that all the time by my teachers. Mom, not so much. I don't think she believed that myth. But I always cracked my knuckles when I was a kid. And according to WebMD, while some people get annoyed with the way it sounds, that's about the worst thing that comes with cracking your knuckles, that you're actually popping little gas bubbles in there and
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't affect your joints. It's not the sound of bones rubbing together. There's no truth to that myth. If you're in pain, though, you should see a doctor.
Mm-hmm.
What did
That's
yours say
interesting.
about that?
Basically the same thing. It says that it doesn't cause arthritis, and there was a 30-year study to prove it. So that's pretty well debunked, I think.
I think you're
And
right.
it does say though, mine says knuckle cracking can lessen one's grip strength because of repeated overstretching of the tendons.
Wow.
So that's
Okay.
an interesting thing. I might need to
I don't do it
caution my
anymore.
cracking children. My children like to crack all the time, their hands. So I'm gonna have to make sure they hear that one, not to
I
stretch their
wonder.
tendons too much.
So that makes me wonder, though, about people that go to the chiropractor all the time and get their back cracked and stuff like that. I wonder if that lessens joint strength. And
I don't know.
I don't want to say anything bad about chiropractors because I've used a few, but interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. What's the next one in your list?
I only have one other one beside the knuckle cracking one.
Oh, okay. That's right. Because you kind of jumped around a little bit. I think
Yeah.
that's
And it's that you lose most of the heat through your head, and that you should wear a hat. And it's false. If you look at the surface area of the head, it's no bigger than the rest of your body, maybe about 10 to 15% of the total surface area. So that's the percentage of body heat that you lose through your head, about 15%.
that's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think the theory was that because of blood flow or whatever, and or maybe because when people get sick and get a fever, it's in their head. They thought that. I don't know. I'm not sure what the rationale was.
I can tell you that if I wear a hat, I burn up. I mean, I feel
Mhm.
like I'm on fire. I can't. And I love the way hats look, but putting a hat on my head, I'd be sweating buckets. But maybe it's,
It
I don't
almost
know.
sounds like the opposite. Like you produce the most body heat through your head, and not that you lose it, you
That's
know?
true.
Because my kids, and I know myself, when I lived up north and there was snow, I'd have a hat on and have like all these layers of clothes. And what was cold? My nose, my ears, my hands, my feet, not my head. My head was sweating buckets with the hat on, you know?
That's interesting. Hmm. We might have to the debunk. I don't know.
I think it's the opposite. I think we make more heat through our head.
Yeah, we may have to
Doesn't
support them, the debunking with that information,
Yeah, because the whole point was, oh,
even though
you
we
have
have
to
no
cover your
scientific
head so
evidence
the
of
heat
it.
doesn't get out, but it's your extremities you got to worry about, and your poor little nose.
I
Your nose gets
know.
cold.
My nose
Your
gets
ears.
cold easily because it sticks out further than.
Mine because it sticks up into the wind.
Wait, are you prissy?
Oh, oh, watch it now. Watch it.
All right. So, aside from those articles or those myths, we did have a few that were from
Others.
two other articles. Mine was from an article called 50 Well-Known Facts That Are Actually Just Common Myths. And it's from bestlifeonline.com. We'll put all the links in the show notes, but I'm going to go through mine kind of quickly because I know we spent more time on the other ones. But the first one is the myth, and it is a myth, that bulls get angry when they see the color red. The truth is that bulls are colorblind. I believe they're red, blue colorblind is the way they say it, or red, green colorblind. But
Mm.
anyway, it's the movement of the cape that makes them angry, not the color red.
Mhm.
Second one, is the same as one you've already mentioned. And that's where I had the second one was in this article. It's about the 10% of the brain things. And I'll just share this quote with you. It said, neurologist Barry Gordon told Scientific American that humans use virtually every part of the brain, and most of the brain is active all the time. I thought that was interesting. And then the third one is, and this is one that we heard from our parents all the time when we were growing up. And that's if you touch a baby bird with your bare hands, the mother will then reject it. That is not true, people. In general, wild animals bond with their young and they are not quick at all to abandon them. And that's coming from the Humane Society. So don't be afraid to pick up a baby bird and put it back in its nest. The mom's not going to kick it out. That's what we heard all the time when we were kids. We would go tell dad or mom, there's a baby bird on the sidewalk, put it back in its nest. And they're like, oh, we can't touch it. And then they would get gloves or something and go touch the bird with the gloves. But then we were all worried that the gloves had human smell on them and blah, blah, blah. And it wasn't true. All of that worrying for nothing. And then the fourth one, the fourth and final, is one that makes one episode of Friends mean absolutely something different. And that is that when somebody gets stung by a jellyfish, you should pee on it. So there was this whole episode of Friends where Monica gets stung by the jellyfish, and Joey and Chandler, I believe, are trying to decide which one of them is going to pee on her jellyfish. And they keep telling her to pee on herself. And she was like, I can't get in that angle. It won't, my body won't go in that direction. So anyway, that's not true. They say the best way to treat a jellyfish sting is with hot water. And they said, in fact, if you urinate on a jellyfish sting, it could actually make it worse, could make it feel worse, burn worse.
I would imagine so.
It's like pouring peroxide on an open wound, right?
Salt, because you probably got a high sodium content in your urine.
Exactly.
Ew.
Especially if you're dehydrated from not drinking 8 glasses of water a day.
Oh my gosh.
So I know you had financial ones. I'm interested to hear what those are.
Well, these are ones that have to do with money.
Okay.
And there's myths about like almost every subject. There's obviously tons of myths about the body and tons of myths about food. And Tina and I were talking before we got on about how a lot of the food ones can be controversial because, we were raised to believe certain things about certain foods based on recommendations from, and I could really dig myself a hole here or go down a real rabbit hole, rather, not dig a hole. I'm digging a rabbit hole. Talking about, cholesterol and red meat and all the different stuff. And we were taught these things by the American Heart Association, which does a lot of good work, but their beginnings are a little suspect. The product Crisco basically was born out of the American Heart Association's first efforts to prevent heart attacks, which obviously now that sounds rather silly. But yeah. So anyways, enough about that.
Yeah.
But we thought, we were like, there's so many different things that there's myths about. There's myths about animals and there's myths about hair care. I looked at some hair care myths and I wasn't real impressed with those because a lot of the ones that when you look them up, they're trying to sell you a product. So it gets a little sketchy on the internet with looking up myths. However, there, as y'all probably can imagine, there's myths about everything. And this article, I thought myths about money would be interesting. And this one is myths that your parents taught you about money, which kind of goes along with my other article that I had found that was about things our parents taught us.
And we've probably taught our kids some things that are wrong, huh?
Probably so. And I that's one of my main worries. I can't talk right. Main worries as a parent is that there was something I either taught them wrong or gave them a bad example of or forgot to teach them. So every once in a while I'll text, I have a group text with all my kids and I'll be like, teachable moment, don't put out a grease fire with water or whatever, like whatever I can, if I think of it or I see something about it, I'm like, by the way, but the first one of these is a six-figure salary will buy you happiness. Will $100,000 bring immediate happiness? No, that is not the case. So there is no set figure that ensures happiness. Obviously, money can't buy happiness. We have heard that one, but I guess the myth is that, you got to be in the six figures of salary or whatever to ensure, your economic safety or whatever. But unfortunately, there's lots of people out there who make a bucket load of money and they're still not happy. And there's plenty of people who are living paycheck to paycheck who know how to find joy. So
Yeah, it's about living
can't
within
put a
your
dollar
means.
amount on
Does
it.
money, having money reduce your stress? Sure. If you use it properly, it does, but it's
Mhm.
not the answer to happiness for sure.
Right. And the second one was investing is only for the rich and debt free. And that's not true either. And they said, it doesn't take much to start investing. You can put a very small amount in investing. And yes, it is a little scary and complicated, but there are lots of ways to learn about investing and lots of small ways you can invest, getting a savings account or whatever that has a high yield of interest, perhaps. And they go into a lot more detail with some statistics about who invests and who doesn't and stuff. But they did say, that if you can start investing when you're still in your 20s, it sets you up for some good results later down the line when you're older, when you want to retire. So the earlier you start investing, the better. And they said the easiest way for young people to really get cracking on investing is through a 401k or a Roth IRA.
Mm.
And a lot of people can do that through their workplace. So that's something. The third one is the only way to build wealth is by buying a home. And because they said a lot of people, the person who they interviewed for it said that they hear all the time, that they feel the people need to buy a house, and they say, why? Why do you need to buy a house? And they say, because my parents always told me I should buy a house.
Yeah.
Buying a house is the thing you should do. But instead of just checking off a box and saying I bought my house, he says that young professionals need to know what their strategy is and what makes sense for them because it's different for the individual. It's different if you're married, it's different if you're single, it's different, if you have kids or don't have kids, because you have different expenses and different budgets. And I mean, I know from personal experience, I have two kids who are single but live with roommates and pay rent. And there are certain advantages they have because they are paying rent and living in a group situation where they don't have to pay the full rent. Whereas
Yep.
and my house is paid off, so that's good for me. But when I was paying a mortgage payment, it was a lot more than rent. And then I know there's a lot of situations where rent is higher than you could get a mortgage payment, but it all
Mm-hmm.
depends on location and it depends on what kind of loan you have
Mm-hmm.
for your mortgage. And we all know, at the 10-year mark, everything starts to break. And when you have to
Oh yeah.
replace your whole electrical system and your whole plumbing system and your hot water heater and your roof and everything else,
Yeah.
it gets expensive. So that's not necessarily that when those things are happening, it sure doesn't feel like a good
Well,
investment.
yeah. And just the house itself, not considering the maintenance on the house and all, just the house itself.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of different things that will cause you to either be in a good financial position with that house or a bad one.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, the first house that we owned, we lost money on that deal because it was a bad the neighborhood kind of changed, and the house was no longer worth what we paid for it. And we were house poor, as they say, because
Mm-hmm.
our house note and all was higher than what the house was worth. The same thing. And then you got to be careful about additional mortgages and things like that, because people tend to eat up the equity in their home with additional mortgages.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm looking forward. We are in the best position now than we've ever been with a house, because we were able to get a low interest loan through the Small Business Association when we had lost our last house in the storm. So we got a disaster loan. We were able to sell that property and then put that money toward the principal of the home we live in. So our house right now is probably worth 3 times what we owe. And so we're in a better position than we've been. But it's the first time in our life. And as you know, I am trying to sell property right now that I've owned since I was 18 years old. And I'll be lucky if I can get what I paid for it, because
Mm-hmm.
the neighborhood that the property is in changed. The
Mm-hmm.
whole development of it changed. And so it's frustrating. Property is not always a wise investment.
No. So, and then the last one that I have for money is to keep your savings and checking accounts in the same place. Um,
That's a
I,
myth, right?
yeah,
That's
that's a
what you're
myth.
saying.
I don't know that our parents ever told us to do that. I've always thought that it was done that way because to be practical, so you wouldn't have
Mhm.
your money all spread out all over the place, but it's actually the best practice is to spread your money around, because if you have if something happens, you know, with your bank,
Hmm.
uh, that could be bad. But also, you want to have the best accounts. So if your bank has a great checking account that, maybe like the checking account I have, I get little dividends at the end of or quarterly dividends, a little interest on my checking account. So
Yeah.
that's a great checking account, but my savings account doesn't do anything for me. However, my investing account does a lot for me, and that's in a whole different bank.
Yeah.
So you want to choose the best accounts, not necessarily the best bank. And I mean, finding a good bank, yes, but the best accounts at whichever banks you choose to bank at, I think, is
Interesting.
what they're trying to
Yeah.
say.
And we have a line of credit and checking and a savings all at the same bank. I've never thought about separating them because it's so easy to transfer money back and forth.
Yeah,
And
convenience is definitely.
I guess you could like get multiple Venmo accounts, like, especially if you have a spouse or whatever, that the spouse can have one Venmo account and you can have another, and you can transfer money between the two of you.
I
That's
will
that's one
say,
way to
yeah,
do it.
that's definitely a nice thing. Having, you've got the one bank app and you can just shuffle your funds around within that. That is an advantage. And that I find it a little bit tricky when I want money out of my investing, my saved investing money, that I have to jump through some hoops. So that
Yeah.
always complicates things.
Oh yeah. I emailed our investment agent about 6 weeks ago about borrowing from one of my investment accounts, and I think I sent 3 or 4 emails and never heard back, which
So,
I'm like, you got my money. I need to hear from you. But
ooh,
it wound up, probably it was God's will, because I wound up handling the situation without taking any money from my investment account. So, yeah, but still, Well, that was really interesting.
mhm.
Some common myths debunked. And we had talked about maybe sharing some ideas about how to find out if something is true or a myth. But it basically comes down to everything we've said in the past. When you see something on Facebook, don't believe it, go search and find out. And it's just a matter of getting good with Google. Learn how to use quotation marks, and quotation marks around a word or phrase means that Google needs to find an article with that exact quote in it. So
Mhm.
that exact word or those exact words or a phrase. And so, yeah, just Google it. And remember that Google will give you more. The less you put in a search field, the more results you will get. The less specific you are, the more results you'll get. So I always start very specific with my searches, and then I back away and make them simpler, because usually I get way more than I need
Yeah.
if I'm too general. But yeah, definitely learn how to use search engines and do better with them. Check out the myths.
There are probably articles on Google about how to Google.
That is true. Or YouTube videos on how to use YouTube.
Do you have some sauce for thought for today?
I do.
Just
I actually got my sauce for thought from an old video that I did where I was talking about something completely different, and it popped up in my memories the other day, and I played the video just because of the funny expression that was on my face in the thumbnail, and I wanted to see what it was about. But it was about something completely different, but I touched on the fact that we need to slow down. And that is something I started thinking about it, because, I'm doing all this simplifying this year. I'm in the year of simplification. And one of the reasons I want to simplify is because I find myself always rushing, and rushing leads to being stressed out. Rushing leads to car accidents. Rushing leads to stumbles and falls. And especially as you get older, we're not ancient, but we're older than we used to be. If we don't slow down and learn to move at a slower pace, that's when there are accidents, right? I whenever mom was in the hospital recently, they always put like a fall risk band on her arm and said she was a fall risk, right? And I understood that, because at 91 years old, if you go to get out of bed too quickly, you don't have the balance you had, right? Now, mom can't move that quickly because of her Parkinson's, but it's the truth. And even for myself, and you and I both suffered from vertigo. So we both know that when you're getting up in the morning for the first time, or if you wake up in the middle of the night and have to use the restroom, you have to slow down when you first get up, because if you move too fast, that vertigo hits you. And so I always, when I'm waking up in the middle of the night to go use the restroom, or getting up in the morning, I will sit up in the bed at a nice pace, and then I'll sit on side the bed until I'm sure I have my stability, because it's not just an old thing. It's a good thing to just take it at a slow pace and gradually build up, because it's just not good to move so fast that you're not in control. And we talked a little bit about being intentional. I think that was one of the things we talked about in our New Year's resolution episode, was if you're going to be intentional, that is what is going to allow you to be more successful in your resolutions. Well, it's the same. Being intentional, if you're going to be intentional, you have to slow down, because if you're moving too fast, you're not going to be able to be as intentional as you would. I said to somebody recently, I said, I feel like I'm always in a hurry, and that's just not a good thing. It's stressful to always be in a hurry. And the more things you have on the plate, the more hurried you're going to be. But that's not always the case. Sometimes you just get in that mindset where you feel like you need to rush, and you may not have anything to do. I will occasionally say to my husband, who is griping about traffic, it's okay. We don't have anywhere to be. We have 4 hours before we need to get where we're going, and there's plenty of time. Just don't be in such a rush. But it's something that we have to say out loud sometimes to remind ourselves. So that's my sauce for thought, is slow down, you're moving too fast. What's the old song? Gotta make the morning
feeling groovy.
last.
I just
Feeling
looked up
groovy.
I looked up the lyrics while you were talking.
That's so funny.
It's
Great
actually
mind.
called the 59th Street Bridge Song by Simon and Garfunkel.
There you go. Because somebody was rushing across the bridge and got in an accident. That's probably what it was.
Maybe they wrote it on the fifth. Maybe they were sitting in traffic on the 59th Street Bridge.
I love it.
Now I need to Google the origin of this song.
That's the truth. But yeah, slow down. You're moving too fast.
Got to make the morning last. Just kicking down the cobblestones. Tina, I love you. Life is groovy.
Groovy. La 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 la. Feeling groovy. Oh Lord, now we're gonna get a bad rating because I'm singing.
They sing too
Somebody's gonna
much.
give us a negative review. Oh well. So coming up, we have some interesting topics. Do you remember what we're talking about next week? Refresh my memory.
You told me.
Oh, I remember what it is. Two of your children will
Excuse me.
appreciate it.
Oh, right. Library.
Yeah, I think it's like National Library Month or something in January, or National Library Week, or I don't know, something, some holiday, I think, associated with libraries. So
Yep.
we're going to appreciate libraries next week.
Appreciate libraries. So we're going to talk about all the things you can appreciate from the library. Because the library has a lot of great things to appreciate.
Yes, and you're more of a library person than me, but I hope to become a library person as I simplify my life and have more time to go to the library. And they're building a brand new library, walking distance from my house.
Nice.
Not that I'm going to walk there because I'm lazy.
Yay for library.
But my daughter said that, oh, I could walk to the library. I said I could too if I wasn't lazy. But yeah, I'm excited. Getting in the library. Have to get a new card. I haven't been so long. I don't even know where my library card is. Oh,
Oh dear.
yeah. And
I
of
just
course,
got mine renewed.
oh, good. I didn't know you had to renew them. I thought they were like good
Apparently.
forever.
No, because I guess in case you move or something, I don't know.
That makes sense. Yeah.
It's easy to do though.
Gotta hunt you down for those overdue fees. I remember when I was a kid, I was such a rule follower, still am, but I would be so embarrassed if my books were late. I would go up to the counter and I'd be like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And you know that I wound up going to the wrong location for my doctor's appointment the other day. And I was mortified. I cried when I called them and said, I'm at the wrong location. I need to reschedule. I was so embarrassed. And what makes it bad is that's the second time that I've been to this doctor like 5 times, and that's the second time that I messed up with my appointment. Not the first time, it was beyond my control because I was trying to use the parking meter. That was a credit card meter, and my card wasn't working. And so, well, it was within my control. I should have went earlier, and I would have allowed myself time. But anyway,
They just have too many offices. That's what I think.
I'm so embarrassed. But anyway, so I'm looking forward to talking about that. And we're also waiting for people to send us their questions. We want to answer your questions, but we can't if we don't know what they are. And we've only gotten a couple.
You guys come up with something.
Yeah.
You must have something that you haven't Googled yet.
I'll have to tell my students. I'll have to tell my students that they can send us some questions and we can, because they feel like they're used to paying me. So they're afraid to ask anything
They can get free.
They might have to pay for. No, I'm kidding. I'm not that bad. But yeah, I think sometimes they don't think to just take advantage of asking things that I can help them with. So that would be interesting.
I'm interested to see what kind of questions we get.
I know. I hope we get some juicy ones.
Oh,
like my husband's having an affair with his secretary, and she's my best friend, and her baby looks like him. And we need some juicy questions, people. Come on.
If it's juicy, can y'all make it anonymous? Because I don't want to feel uncomfortable around you.
Yeah, well, we're definitely not going to say anybody's names. So but be prepared.
Be prepared. Oh, now I'm singing again.
Uh-oh.
Never mind.
Well, I think that was all we had for today. And we will be back next week again with the episode about libraries and appreciating your libraries. But until then, make yourself a priority.
And take care of you.
Bye,
Bye.
everybody.
Thanks for joining us. Make sure you subscribe to keep up on all the latest sauce. See you next time.